What do you do with a memory that refuses to die? What happens when a single night, one soft voice, one fragile smile, outlives a war, outlives the men who survived it, outlives even the young fool you once were? And what do you do when the promise you made in that night still wakes you up 80 years later? My name doesn't matter, not anymore. What matters is that once in June of 1944, in a quiet corner of France smeared with smoke and prayers and the smell of burning wheat, I made a promise I have never been sure I deserved to keep. I was 19. No one should be 19 in a war. We had landed days earlier, though time had already lost its shape. It stretched and shrank like it was breathing unevenly. Sometimes an hour felt like a lifetime. Sometimes 2 days vanished in a blink. I don't remember sleeping, eating, or even blinking. I remember noise, gunfire, engines, men screaming for medics, and then long pockets of silence that felt even worse. That evening, God, I can still smell the dust in the air. We had been pulled off the line, not far, just far enough so we could pretend we weren't marching toward our own graves. There was a small village there, or what was left of it, buildings half-eaten by shells, a church missing its steeple, a square with a stone well and a few old men watching us like we were ghosts wearing their sons' faces. We set up near the edge of town. The lieutenant said we'd rest. Rest, meaning clean your weapon, patch up your boots, and pray you don't get sent out again before sunrise. Most guys wandered off, some looking for a drink, some for trouble, and some for anything that would make them feel human again. I'd been sitting alone near the remains of a barn rubbing mud off my helmet when Miller and Hartman walked up. "Come on, kid," Miller said. He was 24 and acted like he was 80. "You look like you're about to start thinking. Bad habit. We're going into town." "I'm good," I said. Hartman snorted. "No one's good, that's why we're going. Get up." They were already walking, so I followed. The street was quiet except for the distant hum of artillery rolling over the hills, not aimed at us for once. Civilians watched with hollow eyes. War ages everyone. We passed a cafe missing its front wall, a bakery with no roof, a house with a piano still standing upright inside despite everything around it being rubble. And then we reached it. A brothel. I'd never been in one. Hell, I'd barely been with a girl at all. But there it was. A pale pink door chipped from shrapnel but still trying, stubbornly, beautifully, to look inviting. A lantern flickered above it like it was tired too. Miller clapped me on the back. "Look, kid, nobody's forcing you, but if the world ends tomorrow, you might as well meet someone who'll make you forget about it for an hour." I wanted to tell him that forgetting wasn't really my problem, remembering was. But I didn't say anything. I just followed them inside. The air was warm, smelled like cheap perfume and old wood. Girls moved through the room wearing soft smiles and tired eyes. They were beautiful, but not in a poster kind of way. They were beautiful in the way broken things are when they're still standing. One of the women approached us. Dark hair, a gentle face, a French accent that sounded like music even though she barely said 3 words. Miller and Hartman disappeared with her, leaving me standing there like the nervous kid I was. I thought about leaving. I really did. And then I saw her. She wasn't trying to get anyone's attention. She was sitting at a small wooden table in the corner, writing something on a scrap of paper with a pencil that looked like it was nearly out of lead. Her dress was simple, blue, a little worn. Her hair was pinned up, a few loose strands falling around her cheeks. She looked too quiet, too soft, too real for a place like that. I don't know what possessed me, but my feet were moving before my brain caught up. She raised her eyes when I approached. They were the color of old honey, warm, but tired. "Bonsoir," she said softly. "Hi," I answered, because that was all I could come up with. She smiled at my awkwardness. Not unkindly, more like she understood more than she let on. "American," she guessed. "Is it that obvious?" "Oui." A faint laugh. "You walk like someone carrying too many ghosts." That struck me harder than it should have. She motioned to the empty chair across from her. "Sit." I did. "I'm Elise," she said. I swallowed. I know you have a name, she interrupted gently. But for tonight, you can just be a boy who is tired. Is that enough? I didn't know how to answer, so I nodded. She studied me, neither flirtatious nor distant, just present. Her presence alone felt like a warm blanket, like a memory of home. She reached for a cigarette, then paused. Do you mind? No. I shook my head. She lit it but didn't smoke immediately. She watched the smoke curl upward first, like she was thinking about something far away. You are young, she said quietly. You should not be here. You shouldn't either. A sad smile. I was here long before the war. We fell into a silence, comfortable surprisingly. Outside, a tank rumbled somewhere in the distance. Elise didn't flinch. I guess you stopped flinching after a while. How long will you stay? She asked. A day, maybe 2. And then? Then we keep moving. She nodded as if she already knew the answer. I heard the fighting near Kong is bad, she said. It's all bad, I replied. She looked at me for a long moment. Are you afraid? I wanted to lie. 19-year-olds are good at pretending they're bulletproof. But her eyes made lies feel stupid. Yeah, I said. I'm afraid. She looked down at her hands, small, elegant hands with a burn scar on her left wrist, like she once grabbed a hot pot and never forgot the pain. I am afraid too, she whispered. What of? She hesitated. Losing people, she finally said. I have lost too many already. Her voice cracked on the last word, so softly it was almost invisible. I didn't know what made me do it. I barely knew this woman. But I reached out and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. She looked at our hands, then at me, her eyes glistening. For a moment, the entire building, the war, the world, felt like it had collapsed into that single point of warmth between us. You are kind, she said softly. I'm not, I whispered. I'm just tired of everything hurting. She understood. I could tell. The room around us faded into background noise, murmured conversations, footsteps upstairs, clinking glasses. But we were in our own quiet world. Would you like to go upstairs? She asked at last. Her tone wasn't seductive, it wasn't business. It was an invitation into a moment we both needed. But I shook my head. That's not why I came over, I said. She blinked, surprised. The words tangled in my throat. I just didn't want to be alone tonight. Her expression softened in a way I will never forget. Then we stay here, she said simply. And we did. For hours. Talking. Just talking. She asked about America, about what the ocean looked like, about what snow felt like on your tongue. She said she'd never left France, never seen the world. You will, I said. She smiled. How can you be so sure? I hesitated, then said the stupidest, bravest thing I had ever said. Because I'll take you. Her eyes widened, not mocking, not scared, just hopeful, like no one had said something that kind to her in a very long time. You promise? She whispered. I swallowed hard. Yeah, I promise. Elise inhaled slowly, as if memorizing the air between us. She touched my cheek with her fingertips, light, trembling. You should not make promises in a war, she murmured. War steals too much. I'll keep it, I said stubbornly. She looked down, her smile trembling. I hope you can. We sat together until the lanterns burned low and the night outside felt heavier. Then the door slammed open. A sergeant burst in, face red, breath short. All units, he shouted. We move out now. Front's heating up again, on your feet. My heart dropped. Not now. Not yet. I turned to Elise. Her face went pale, but she didn't cry. She just reached out and grabbed my hand. "You must go," she said. "I will come back," I insisted. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Keep your promise." "I will," I said again, because I didn't know what else to say, and because saying it felt like tying myself to something good. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead to mine. Her breath trembled against my lips. Not a kiss, not exactly, but something deeper. "Be safe," she whispered. Miller was yelling my name from the doorway. The sergeant was yelling again. Boots thundered on the stairs. But all I remember is Elise's hand slipping out of mine, and the terrible hollow sound it made when it finally let go. Elise's hand slipped from mine like a thread snapping in a storm. One moment her warmth was there, quiet, steady, anchoring me to something human. And the next it was gone, replaced by shouts, boots, and orders barked sharp enough to cut skin. I stumbled out into the street with the other men. The night had turned colder. Or maybe everything just felt colder without her near me. The moon hung low, half covered by drifting smoke. It looked like a dying lantern. Miller jogged up beside me. "Where the hell were you, kid?" "Thought you fell in a well." I didn't answer. My mind was still upstairs with Elise's trembling voice in my ear. "Keep your promise." Hartman smirked as he fell in line. "Kid looks like he saw a ghost." I had, in a way, only she wasn't dead, just living in a world where hope was a risky luxury. We marched out of town, heading toward the front like cattle driven toward a burning field. I kept looking back over my shoulder, even though I knew she couldn't be standing there watching. The brothel door stayed shut. The windows stayed dark. But I imagined her behind one of them, hand on the glass, whispering a goodbye too soft for anyone but me to hear. Then the artillery started. A low rumble shook the ground, distant but growing. Every boom was a reminder. The world didn't care about promises made between two frightened people in the corner of a brothel. The column moved faster. By dawn, we reached the outskirts of another shattered village. This one nothing but rubble and the smell of gunpowder that seemed burned permanently into the earth. We dug in. The lieutenant briefed us. German armor had been spotted nearby. Infantry movements north of us, possible counterattack incoming. We'd hold the line until reinforcements arrived. Nobody complained. Complaining required energy. I sat in a foxhole with my rifle across my knees. Miller lit a cigarette and passed it to me. I didn't smoke, but I took it anyway and let it burn between my fingers, watching the thin line of smoke curl upward like Elise's had the night before. She had looked beautiful holding that cigarette, the way she inhaled softly, the way her gaze drifted into some quiet universe only she could see. She didn't glow like a woman trying to seduce a man. She glowed like someone who had endured far too many winters and still managed to carry a flame inside her. "Earth to kid," Miller muttered. "You in love or something?" "No," I said too quickly. Hartman laughed. "He definitely is." "I'm not," I insisted, though the words felt stupid even as they left my mouth. Because I was something. Maybe not in love. Maybe not yet. But I was tied to Elise in a way that made my chest tighten every time I thought about her being alone in that building, listening for footsteps, wondering if any soldier walking through her door would treat her like a person or a thing. War didn't just kill men, it ate women's lives too. Before I could reply, a whistle sliced through the air. "Incoming!" someone shouted. We dove deeper into the dirt as the first shell hit near the ridge, throwing mud and smoke into the sky. The ground shook. My ears rang. Miller swore under his breath. More shells followed, a rain of metal. That's when something changed inside me. Fear had been a constant companion since landing on the beach, but that morning it sharpened. Because it wasn't just my life I worried about anymore. If I died here, Elise would never know whether I meant my promise, or if it had just been a young soldier's foolish words whispered in the dark. She deserved more than that. A shout cut through the air. "Take positions. German infantry approaching on the east flank." The firefight began fast. Too fast. Bullets cracked past my head, snapping branches ricocheting off stones. I fired blindly at shapes moving through the smoke. Bodies fell, both sides. Miller cursed as he reloaded. Hartman yelled for more ammo. My hands shook so badly I dropped a magazine into the mud and had to wipe it off on my sleeve. But something else shook inside me too. A stubborn, stupid determination. I will come back. I promised her. The hours blurred. At some point, I couldn't feel my shoulder from the recoil. Miller got grazed on the cheek, blood running down his jaw, but he didn't stop firing. Hartman screamed something I couldn't hear over the explosions. Then a German MG-42 opened up from behind the ruins of a farmhouse. Its sound was unmistakable, like a chainsaw tearing through the world. Men dropped instantly. "Flank it!" the lieutenant shouted. "Go! Go!" Somehow, through the chaos, my body moved with a purpose I didn't understand. I crawled through mud, sprinted between broken walls, slid behind a fallen beam. The gun roared. The ground erupted inches from my boots. I should have been terrified, but all I could see was Elise setting down her pencil, looking up at me with eyes soft enough to make a war feel like a whisper. When I finally reached the gunner's blind side, I tossed a grenade without thinking. The explosion swallowed the air. Silence, brief, heavy, followed. Then more gunfire, more shouting. The battle kept going and we kept fighting because that's what men in wars do. They fight until they're told to stop or until they can't stand anymore. By late afternoon, the world smelled like cordite and death. When the Germans finally withdrew, the field looked like a graveyard without headstones, bodies lying twisted, weapons half buried in churned mud, smoke drifting in thin, ghostly waves. I sat down, breathing hard. My fingers were numb. My legs shook. Miller sat beside me, pulling off his helmet. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." "I said I'm fine," I snapped, louder than I intended. He raised an eyebrow but didn't push. The lieutenant walked by counting casualties. Hartman was bandaged up, limping but alive. A medic knelt over a young private, pressing his hands to a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. War didn't care about promises. But I did. And that terrified me more than anything else. That night, we camped near the ruins. The sky was clear enough for stars, but they looked dim, like even they were tired of watching us kill each other. I lay awake on my bedroll, staring up, replaying every moment with Elise. Her voice, her sadness, the way she looked at me when I told her I'd take her away from France. A promise made by candlelight has a different weight on a battlefield. What if she thought I was just another soldier telling pretty lies? What if she never believed me? What if... "Kid," Miller said from the darkness, half asleep. "Who is she?" I froze. "What?" "You heard me." He yawned. "You've had that look since we left town. I've seen it before." "No, you haven't." "Yeah, I have. Every damn war has someone making a promise to someone they barely know because they're scared they won't make it out." I clenched my jaw. "It wasn't like that." "Sure," he murmured. "Keep telling yourself." He drifted off. I didn't. I couldn't. Because maybe he was partly right. Maybe fear had something to do with it. But what bloomed between Elise and me wasn't desperation. It was recognition. Two people who'd been carrying too much finally finding a place to set it down even for a night. I touched my chest, right where her hand had rested before I left. It still burned. Before dawn, we were ordered to move again. More fighting ahead. More towns to clear. More nightmares to add to the growing pile behind my ribs. Days passed, maybe 4, maybe 5. Hard to say. Battles blurred, villages burned, men died. I had mud permanently under my nails and blood permanently under my memory. But through all of it, Elise stayed with me. When bullets snapped overhead, I thought of her whispering, "Be safe." When the nights were so cold my bones hurt, I imagined her tucking that loose strand of hair behind her ear. When artillery shook the earth, I heard her voice saying, "You carry too many ghosts." By the 6th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to get back to her. Not someday. Not after the war. Not when things calm down, because nothing ever calms down in war. I needed to go back now. But going back required surviving first, and that was becoming less certain by the hour. By the 6th day, something inside me cracked. Not in the loud way things break in war, but in the quiet way a heart finally admits what it can't let go of. Elise's face kept rising behind everything I saw, like her memory was being projected against the smoke-filled sky. I kept hearing her voice, not pleading, not dramatic, just soft. Soft enough to hurt. Keep your promise. I told myself I would. I told myself I had to. But on that 6th day, survival started to feel like a coin toss, and every time bullets tore through the air, I felt the coin slipping from my fingers. By then, we'd pushed toward a patchwork of French farmland, fields that should have smelled like wheat in summer but instead smelled like diesel, sweat, and old fires. The hedgerows were the worst. Walls of thick brush taller than men, perfect cover for ambushes. Normandy looked peaceful in pictures, but in those hedgerows, death could crouch 3 feet away and you'd never know until it was too late. That morning, the lieutenant said we'd advance through the hedges and secure a crossroad. Reinforcements would sweep in behind us. Simple plan. Plans were always simple on paper. We were moving when a shot cracked through the air. Someone screamed. Chaos exploded. German rifles opened up from the hedges, invisible but everywhere. The sound of bullets ripping through leaves was a sound I still dream about. It's like a swarm of hornets, angry and relentless. "Down! Down!" Miller shouted, dragging me behind a stump. Hartman returned fire toward the hedgerow, even though we couldn't see a damn thing. Men fell. Some instantly, others slowly, choking on their own blood. War is a thief. It steals people in the most abrupt ways. And that morning, it came for me too. We pushed forward in bursts, shoot, run, dive, repeat, until we reached a break in the hedge. The lieutenant yelled for 2 volunteers to flank left, draw fire, and give the rest of the squad an opening. Before my brain could catch up, my hand was in the air. "Kid, what the hell are you doing?" Miller hissed. "I'll be fine," I lied. Hartman snorted. "No, you won't. You're stupid." But I wasn't being brave or stupid. Not really. I was being pulled by something I couldn't name yet. A promise. A voice. A connection that had become my lifeline. If I didn't act, if I didn't do something, I'd drown in my own fear. Moving forward was the only way to stay alive. "Let him go," the lieutenant said. "Hartman, go with him." We skirted along the hedge, staying low. Dirt filled my mouth. Sweat stung my eyes. Every rustle sounded like a rifle. Every shadow looked like a barrel pointed at my skull. Then we saw movement. A German soldier, crouched behind a fallen log, reloading. My body moved before I could think. I fired. He fell. Hartman muttered, "Jesus, kid." But there wasn't time to feel anything. Not guilt, not relief, not fear. Another burst of gunfire ripped through the branches above us. "Move!" Hartman yelled. We sprinted to a stone wall, diving behind it as bullets chewed into the rocks. The impact rattled my teeth. That's when the machine gun started again. An MG-42. That horrible, relentless buzzsaw. I felt the vibrations in my bones. Hartman peeked over the wall and ducked immediately. 2 gunners, maybe 3, we're screwed. I swallowed. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My legs felt weak. For a moment, all I saw was Elise pressing her forehead to mine, whispering, "Be safe." I touched my chest like I could still feel her there. "We have to take them out," I said. Hartman stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "Are you insane?" Probably. But the alternative was dying here and letting my promise become another ghost to carry. We waited for the reload, a brief pause in the weapon's roar. The second it came, we moved. We dashed forward, sliding behind another hedgerow, crawling through the thorns, ignoring the way branches clawed at our uniforms. The gunners were just 20 yards away now. Hartman mouthed, 3. I nodded. He tossed a smoke grenade. It spewed a thick white cloud, swallowing the air. Bullets tore through it blindly. We sprinted into the fog. I saw shapes, silhouettes. I fired. One went down. Hartman fired. Another fell. But the third, he saw me before I saw him. A flash, a crack. A burning punch slammed into my shoulder so hard I dropped my rifle. The impact spun me sideways and I crashed to the ground. For a moment, the world went silent. White. Bright. Distant. I heard my heartbeat in my teeth. Hartman tackled the gunner. They struggled. He stabbed him with his bayonet, panting, cursing, shaking. Then he crawled over to me. Kid, stay with me." His voice sounded like it was underwater. I touched my shoulder. My hand came away warm and red. "Is it bad?" I asked, barely hearing myself. No, it's fine," he lied. I smiled weakly. He wasn't as good at lying as Elise was at telling the truth. The battle ended minutes later. Reinforcements arrived. Medics rushed in. Voices shouted orders I couldn't understand. I was carried away on a stretcher, staring up at the sky. It looked the same as every sky I'd seen in France. Tired, gray, haunted. The medic pressed bandages to my shoulder. "You're lucky, son. Bullet went clean through. Missed the bone." Lucky. Funny word in a war. I drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes I saw Miller leaning over me. Sometimes I heard Hartman arguing with a sergeant about who deserved the damn credit. Sometimes I felt the truck bouncing as they moved the wounded to the rear. But mostly, I saw her, sitting at her little table, writing with that worn pencil, looking up at me with tired honey-colored eyes. A woman who'd seen too much loss, and still opened a quiet, fragile space in her heart for one more stranger. By the time I woke again, I was in a makeshift medical tent miles from the front. My shoulder was bandaged tight. My head felt stuffed with cotton. The air smelled like disinfectant and mud. A nurse leaned over me. "Welcome back, soldier. You're going to be all right." I blinked. "What day is it?" "June 21st. 7 days since I left her. 7 days since I made a promise my body hadn't been sure it could keep." I pushed myself up despite the pain. "I need to go back." "Back where?" she asked gently. "To a village," I said. "Southwest of..." I stopped, realized I didn't even know the village's name. Near the brothel." Her eyebrows lifted. "Ah. No," I said quickly. "It's not what you think." She softened. "It rarely is." I tried to stand. She pushed me back down. "You can't leave, not yet. You lost a lot of blood." "I have to." Her voice turned firm. "You'll tear the wound open." I didn't care. Pain was nothing compared to the thought of Elise waiting for a soldier who might never step through that door again. A doctor came by, checked my bandages, ordered rest for at least 3 days. 3 days. 3 lifetimes. Every hour I lay there was torture because war didn't wait. Armies moved. Fronts shifted. Villages changed hands or burned. Elise could be gone by the time I reached her, or worse. On the second night, Miller found me in the tent. "Hey, kid." I looked up. "You alive?" "That's what they tell me." He sat on a crate next to my cot. "Heard you took out that MG nest." "Hartman was with me. He said you saved his ass." I shook my head. My shoulder throbbed. Miller sighed. "You're thinking about her." I didn't deny it. He rubbed his jaw. "Look, kid, some people come into your life because war blows them into your path. But war also blows them away just as fast. You know that." "She wasn't just someone," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "I know." Silence hung between us, heavy as artillery smoke. Then he said something I never expected to hear from him. "When you're cleared, I'll go with you." I stared. "What?" "You heard me," he said. "I'll help you find her." My throat tightened. "Why?" "Because you look like a man who'll go whether it kills you or not." He exhaled. "I'd rather it not kill you." I didn't know what to say. Gratitude felt too small. Fear felt too big. The next morning, the doctor checked my wound again and grumbled, "You heal fast, kid, must be stubborn." He released me that afternoon. I grabbed my gear. Miller met me outside. "You ready?" he asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I'm going anyway." He grinned. "Good answer." We set out toward the village, walking cautiously, rifles slung, the horizon glowing orange with distant fires. And all I could think, over and over, was, "Hold on, Elise, please, just hold on." Because I was coming back. I was keeping my promise. Even if the war tried to steal it from me every step of the way. We walked for hours, me and Miller, along narrow dirt roads that twisted through the French countryside like faded scars. The sky was low and gray, the sort of sky that makes the world feel heavier. My shoulder throbbed with every step, but I didn't slow down. The closer we got to the village, the tighter my chest became. What if we were too late? What if the Germans had retaken the area? What if Elise had been forced to flee? What if she thought I'd lied? What if... War doesn't just fill your head with fear. It fills it with what-ifs sharp enough to bleed you dry. Around midday, we reached a familiar ridge overlooking the valley below. Smoke curled lazily from distant barns. The trees swayed softly. It was almost peaceful. Too peaceful for a world that had been screaming just days before. "That's the place," I murmured. Miller nodded. "Let's hope it's still standing." We moved down the slope and entered the outskirts of the village. The shell holes were still there. The broken church still leaned to one side. Civilians watched us cautiously from doorways. Tired eyes, thin faces, people living on whatever pieces of life war hadn't taken from them yet. My heart pounded as we turned a corner. There it was, the brothel. Pink door, chipped paint, lantern above it hanging crookedly. Still standing. But standing didn't mean alive. I approached slowly. Every step felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff. My breath grew shallow. My palms sweat through my gloves. What if she was gone? I reached the door. It was closed. Quiet. I knocked lightly. No answer. Miller whispered behind me. "Try again." I knocked harder. Still nothing. My stomach twisted. I grabbed the door handle, hesitated only a moment, then pushed it open. The air inside was different, colder, still. Like the building had exhaled and never inhaled again. Furniture was overturned. A chair lay broken on the floor. A picture frame was shattered near the stairs. The place had been ransacked. My chest tightened like a fist squeezing my ribs from the inside. "Elise?" I called, my voice cracking. "Elise." No footsteps, no voices, just the echo of my own panic bouncing off the walls. I rushed to the table in the corner, the table where she'd been sitting that night. Her pencil was gone. The paper she'd been writing on was gone too. "Elise!" I yelled again. Nothing. A door creaked upstairs. I spun, rifle raised, but it was only a woman. Dark hair, dirt on her cheeks, limping slightly. Not Elise. She froze when she saw us. "American?" she asked breathlessly. "Yes," I said. "Please, please, where is Elise? The girl who sat here, blue dress, she was writing, she closed her eyes like the words pained her. "She is gone," the woman whispered. My heart almost stopped. "Gone where?" "I do not know." Her voice trembled. "The Germans came 2 days ago, searching for something, someone. They took money. They hit some of the girls. Many ran, many hid. When they left..." She swallowed hard. "Some of the girls disappeared. We do not know if they fled or were taken." My knees nearly buckled. Elise. Taken? Gone? Dead? The world spun. Miller steadied me, gripping my good arm. "Kid, breathe." But I couldn't. I felt like the walls were closing in, crushing me. The woman stepped forward. "I am sorry," she said softly. "We hoped she would return, but..." Her voice faded. I clung to the edge of the table to stay upright. "She waited for you," the woman added, almost whispering. "Every day. She thought you might come back." I shut my eyes. The thought of her sitting there, watching the door, waiting for me, it was unbearable. "Do you know where she might have gone?" Miller asked gently. The woman shook her head. "No, but she left something." My eyes snapped open. "What?" She walked behind the counter, rummaged through a drawer, and returned holding a small folded piece of paper, worn, smudged, as if it had been held many times with shaking hands. She said, "If the soldier with the quiet eyes returned, give him this." My throat tightened. My hands shook as I took the paper. For a moment, I couldn't unfold it. Miller whispered, "Go on." I opened it slowly, afraid the words inside would break me apart. There were only 5 lines written in delicate handwriting. "You kept something alive in me I thought was dead. If you return and I am gone, please do not carry sadness for me. War takes everything, but it cannot take what we shared. Live, for both of us. Elise." My vision blurred, my chest heaved. I pressed the note to my heart because the pain in it was too big for my hands alone. Miller lowered his head. "Kid, I'm sorry." Sorry, such a small word for such a wide wound. I sank into the chair, the same one I had sat in that night, and felt myself breaking in places I didn't know could break. Because I didn't just lose a girl. I lost the one person who made the war pause, even if only for an evening. The one person who saw me, not the uniform, not the fear, not the ghosts, but me. She had been a small light in a world made entirely of smoke, and now she was gone. I don't remember how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. Time didn't move correctly that day. Eventually, Miller rested a hand on my shoulder. "We can keep looking," he said quietly. "Ask around. Check nearby towns. Someone might know." "No," I whispered. He frowned. "Kid, I know what she'd want. She wrote it." He studied me, then nodded slowly. We left the village before dusk. Not because I wanted to leave her behind, but because staying would have torn me open worse than any bullet. As we walked away, I turned back one last time. The pink door stood there, still chipped, still stubborn. A place where a boy and a woman caught in a war had shared a few hours of peace. A place that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Many years passed. The war ended. I lived. I built a life. Marriage, children, work, old age. But in quiet moments, in the creaking hours before dawn, I still thought of Elise. People say first love is unforgettable. But they don't understand that some loves happen so fast and in such impossible places that they leave scars deeper than years ever could. I never found her, but I carried her note folded in my wallet for decades. Through every victory, every loss, every gray morning when the past felt too close. She said not to carry sadness. I tried. Sometimes I failed, but I lived, because she told me to. And now, old and bone-tired, I can finally look back at that promise. The one I whispered in a brothel lit by a dying lantern. The one I never got to keep. And I understand something I didn't as a 19-year-old boy. Some promises aren't meant to be kept. Some are meant to keep you. Elise kept me alive long after the gunfire stopped. She kept me kind. She kept me human. And every time I pass a mirror and see the old man staring back, I still see a boy sitting in a corner of a war-torn room, holding the hand of a woman who deserved so much more than the world ever gave her. I remember her smile, her voice, her note, and I whisper into the dark even now. I came back, Elise. I came back. I hope, wherever you are, you know that. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. Your support helps bring more powerful stories to life.